With everything that has already been revealed to us about the Moro saga recently, we eagerly await other grand events, the Granolah the Survivor arc. What makes this arc special and far surpasses the Granolah arc is exactly what we're going to talk about and much more. Get ready for a unique experience. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and hit the bell notification. The Granolah saga fits into the Dragon Ball Super manga exactly as the direct continuation of the Moro saga, functioning as the next arc in the official chronological timeline of the story. After the end of the Tournament of Power and the events of the movie Dragon Ball Super Broly, the manga enters first into the Moro saga, which expands the role of the Galactic Patrol and brings a conflict on a universal scale. As soon as that crisis ends, without any major time skip, the narrative immediately jumps into the Granolah saga. In the current Dragon Ball Super manga, the order is clear: Tournament of Power, Broly, Moro saga, and then the Granolah saga. This means that Granolah is not an isolated or parallel arc, but the natural progression of the story after the consequences left by Moro. The characters carry experience, changes, and lessons from the previous arc, and the new saga uses that as a starting point to develop more personal conflicts tied to the universe's past. Regarding the recent event that happened this year, what was officially revealed is that the anime's return will follow the manga's order, beginning precisely with the adaptation of the Moro saga. The production made it clear that the intention is to align the anime with the material that only existed in the manga until then. Although no specific date or dedicated trailer for the Granolah saga has been announced, the fact that the anime resumes the story from Moro naturally places Granolah as the next arc to be adapted if the continuation follows the chronological plan. In summary, within the current Dragon Ball Super, the Granolah saga is the arc that comes immediately after Moro and before the more recent adaptations tied to the events of Super Hero. And with the announcement of the anime's return focused on adapting post-Tournament of Power content, everything indicates that Granolah is part of the path planned for the animation, even though no detailed public confirmation about it exists yet. First of all, guys, who is Granolah? Within Dragon Ball Super, Granolah is introduced as the last survivor of a race almost entirely exterminated in a massacre that involved forces far greater than he could face as a child. That past completely defines who he becomes: a solitary warrior, extremely skilled, who lives driven by revenge and a profound sense of loss. Granolah is not a classic villain who wants to dominate the universe or destroy things for pleasure. He is a tragic character. His motivation is born from trauma and memory. From an early age, he grows up carrying the weight of knowing that his people disappeared, and that shapes his training, his mentality, and the cold, calculated way he faces combat. Unlike many enemies in the series, Granolah fights with surgical precision, using strategy and technique as much as brute force. What makes Granolah especially interesting is that he represents the consequences of Dragon Ball's universe's past coming back to claim its price. His story is tied to ancient events and important figures in the chronology, which transforms his presence into something greater than just another adversary to be defeated. He functions as a mirror that forces the protagonists to face inheritances and decisions that came from previous generations. In terms of personality, Granolah is serious, straightforward, and distrustful. He does not seek fame or recognition. His goal is personal and specific. This gives the saga a more intimate and emotional tone, because the conflict revolves as much around feelings as around battles. Thus, Granolah enters the story as a character that mixes antagonism and empathy, someone who challenges the heroes not only physically, but also on a moral level. And this saga is precisely about the past, and it is the apex we expect from it. Something surreal is about to arrive, and its name is Bardock. It is certainly possible that a film will be made about this, placing him with more screen time and then following the events of Granolah. This reading makes sense within what the saga proposes. The Granolah saga in Dragon Ball Super is, in large part, a story about inheritance and the past returning to the present. In this context, Bardock becomes a central piece because he represents the link between the old generation of Saiyans and the consequences that fall upon the current characters. Without making any quality judgment, the idea of a film focused on Bardock would fit well as an expansion of this arc. The franchise has used this model before, taking important events from the past and giving them more screen time in parallel productions. A feature film could explore the historical perspective, deepen conflicts, and then reconnect with the events of Granolah in the main anime. In terms of narrative structure, this would work as a cinematic prologue that reinforces the emotional weight of the saga. In summary, Bardock functions as a thematic pillar of the saga because he personifies the past that the narrative wants to revisit.
The idea of a film dedicated to him is consistent with the franchise's logic and the type of expansion Dragon Ball usually makes, but at the moment it's a conceptual possibility, not a confirmation. Speaking of the Saiyan's weight, he who carries the events in Dragon Ball during the Granolah saga torments himself with everything the Saiyans have done. Vegeta, now the king of the Saiyans, carries all that weight on his back.
This is one of the strongest dramatic axes of the Granolah saga. Within Dragon Ball Super, the arc uses the Saiyans' past as a real historical weight, not just as a backdrop. The narrative makes it clear that the Saiyan Empire was not only an admirable warrior force, but also an agent of destruction on a galactic scale. That legacy returns as a moral problem that cannot be resolved by victory in combat alone. This is where Vegeta takes on a very important symbolic role. Even if the title of King of the Saiyans is more of a cultural inheritance than an active political position, he internalizes that identity as responsibility. The saga suggests that Vegeta understands he carries the collective memory of his people, glory and atrocities included. This changes how he faces the conflict. It is not just a personal or competitive fight, but a reckoning with history. What is interesting is that this weight is not treated as simple guilt. The story works with the idea of legacy. Vegeta cannot undo what the Saiyans did, but he can decide what the Saiyan name means from now on. This shift is crucial to the character's maturity. He stops being just the proud prince who wants to prove superiority and starts acting as someone who acknowledges historical consequences. In this sense, the Granolah saga functions almost as a drama of collective memory. The accumulated resentment against the Saiyans is neither exaggerated nor dismissed. It is presented as something legitimate within the universe of the story. And it is precisely the confrontation between that resentment and the attempt to redefine identity that gives the arc its depth. Vegeta becomes the convergence point of this theme, an heir of an extinct empire trying to transform the meaning of his own blood. And it is in this saga that Vegeta achieves something extraordinary: Ultra Ego. Ultra Ego is achieved by Vegeta during the Granolah saga in Dragon Ball Super as a result of his training with a god of destruction. Instead of following the same path as Ultra Instinct, which is based on mental calm, evasion, and automatic movement, Vegeta learns to use the opposite logic, the energy of destruction. The process is not simply gaining a new transformation. Vegeta learns to manipulate the destructive power that gods of destruction use, an energy associated with the concept of Hakai. The central point is the mentality. To use Ultra Ego, he must abandon hesitation, guilt, and self-restraint. The form works better the more he embraces combat and damage. Unlike other transformations that seek to minimize impact, Ultra Ego converts damage received into a power increase. The more he gets hit, within a limit, the stronger he becomes. This is why the form carries a great symbolic weight. It represents the acceptance of Vegeta's Saiyan nature. During the Granolah saga, the story revolves heavily around the historical consequences of the Saiyans. Vegeta understands that he cannot erase that past, but he can take responsibility for it. Ultra Ego is the expression of that stance. He stops trying to be an alternative version of Goku and embraces a style that matches his identity, aggressive, direct, and tied to destruction. Technically, the form has clear risks. Because it depends on receiving damage to grow, there is a physical limit. If Vegeta's body exceeds that limit, the power starts to drop. So Ultra Ego is powerful, but requires endurance management and tactical judgment. It is not an invincible transformation. It is an extreme tool that reflects the combat philosophy he has chosen to follow. In summary, Vegeta achieves Ultra Ego by training in destruction energy and adopting a mentality compatible with it. The weight of the form comes from the fact that it symbolizes his reconciliation with the Saiyan legacy and the decision to walk his own path, different from Goku's. Anyway, those are some of the highlights of the Granolah saga, but let's bring a brief summary of the whole thing. The Granolah saga begins by introducing Granolah as the last survivor of the Cerealians, a race destroyed decades earlier during the expansion of Frieza's empire with the participation of the Saiyans. Consumed by revenge, Granolah discovers the Dragon Balls of his planet and makes a radical wish to become the strongest warrior in the universe. The wish is granted, but at a cost. He sacrifices almost all of his remaining lifespan in exchange for that absurd power. Meanwhile, Goku and Vegeta are drawn to the planet by an opportunistic group called the Heaters, who manipulate events to eliminate rivals and take control of Frieza's empire. When the confrontation begins, Granolah dominates the fight with extremely precise techniques, exploiting vital points and forcing both Saiyans beyond their limits. It is in this context that Vegeta reveals Ultra Ego, embracing the destructive power learned from the gods of destruction, while Goku deepens his personal version of Ultra Instinct. In the middle of the battle, the truth about the past begins to emerge. Granolah discovers that the destruction of his people revealed unexpected nuances, especially involving Bardock, Goku's father. This revelation shakes his absolute certainty of revenge and changes the tone of the conflict, transforming the fight into something less about blind hatred and more about understanding the past. Before the situation is resolved, the Heaters execute their own move. They use the Dragon Balls to create new artificially superior warriors, escalating the conflict to an even more chaotic level. The final battle becomes a war of survival against these new enemies. Goku, Vegeta, and Granolah are forced to cooperate despite their differences.
The arc reaches its climax when at the moment everything seems decided, Frieza returns unexpectedly after training in secret for an extreme period. He appears with a new transformation, the Black Form, and demonstrates an overwhelming power leap. In just a few moments, Frieza eliminates the leaders of the Heaters, reaffirms his position as Emperor, and withdraws, not from mercy but for calculation. He sees Goku and Vegeta as rivals to be preserved for a future confrontation. The saga ends with an unsettling feeling. Granolah's personal revenge loses priority faced to a much greater threat that has just established itself. Goku and Vegeta realize that after all the evolution they achieved, there is still an abyss between them and Frieza's new power. In essence, the Granolah saga is about legacy, memory, and consequence. It revisits the Saiyans' past, rebuilds the figure of Bardock, consolidates Vegeta's own path with Ultra Ego, deepens Goku's Ultra Instinct, and, as the cherry on top, repositions Frieza as the dominant force in the universe with his Black Form, paving the way for even greater conflicts.